Hello, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries, and everybody else under the rainbow of our wonderful community. How are you doing today? You know what? We're here. You know the title screen. We're continuing. We're continuing Maeve's route. I still don't know if by skipping Book of the Soldier we're gonna, like, miss something, but I don't want to romance them, so... Clicky. Oh, it's a double click. Oh, I just realized that. Oh, that's right. Chapter 1 was quite long. Dude, chill. Okay, let's just see how many That was loud. Yeah, replay mode's off. No. We play it one way. One way only. Legacies. My heart pounds as I climb through the impossibly tall tangle of lush spring-bound trees. Spring-bound trees. I'm already messing up. Feeling small and unsettled by every rustling leaf and crunch of undergrowth in the distance. In the 2 weeks since I've been here, I've learned that this forest is called... the Forest of the Gods.
There's no
way that was happening. Irish, you're beautiful, but you're messing with me, man. And I can't find myself arguing with that choice of name. If we've been here for 2 weeks, that means we've definitely eaten way more food. We are stuck here. It's an ancient feeling place, watchful and domineering, but breathtaking in its beauty. I can almost sense the eyes of the forest following my every move. Still, I press on, checking for the markers I left behind in my first trek here. It's hard to keep track of the time in a land where the sky never changes, so I had to be especially sure that I wouldn't get lost on the day I needed to meet with Maeve. Thankfully, my preparations pay off. After slipping under an arching root 3 times the width of my torso, I arrive at my destination. A glade of... Gallon?
Gallon. And then the plural. Gallon.
But there's an... How does an I there change the beginning? No. So, a men here, standing stone. A glade of Gallon, not unlike the ones I've seen adorning the fields of Ireland. Spare the otherworldly faces etched into the stone. If we ever had those, they've been long worn away with the weather. I find myself stealing around the glade's periphery, too intimidated to enter such a simultaneously exposed and secluded place. There's a tension in the air, a sacredness that makes me feel like I'm intruding. Maybe I am, come to think of it. What did Maeve call this place? A druid's crossing? I don't know what that means, of course, but that's part of the problem. If this is some kind of consecrated land, in a pagan sort of way, that is, then I really shouldn't be here. I'm not a druid after all. Neither is Maeve, I remind myself with a little shake of the head. If she figures she can be here, I suppose I can as well. Honesty of identity notwithstanding. As I wrestle with my nerves, my thoughts fleetingly drift back to Maeve herself. Not about anything important, mind, just how she's doing, or what she's been up to since we last spoke, because that's my future wife, and I care about her and her well-being. I haven't spent long in her company in the grand scheme of things, but I miss her. She puts me at ease in this strange new place, and I find myself feeling isolated in her absence. Honestly, it's a little embarrassing, but I can't help myself. She's obviously led a wonderfully adventurous life. And I feel like I'd kill to know more about the Morrigan. If I wasn't so intent on getting home as soon as possible, all I'd want to do is sit and listen to Maeve's story. It isn't hard to see why she's so popular with the unseelie, that's for certain. In any case, I need to stop stalling. I don't see anyone else lurking in the glade, but Maeve may be waiting for me to show myself first. That'd be the smart thing to do. For all she knows, I could have led an ambush here. If I really was with the Seelie anyway. Steeling myself, I finally skulk out of the trees and into the ring of standing stones until I come face to face with its centerpiece, an engraving of a woman with 3 heads. A goddess, I figure. But which one? I can't very well ask anyone. A druid should know. Maybe it's this Danu I keep hearing about. She certainly talked about enough in passing. Unless... there's something nagging at me. An inkling of familiarity that I can't quite place about her. My eyes drift to the statue's base, which stands in a shallow well. A few rushes hug her, obscuring what almost looks like the jagged cuts of a kind of script. I sink to my knees, leaning forward to reveal the lettering. It's nothing I understand, but there's a symbol that catches my eye. Is that? Is that just gonna be Bridget? Exalted goddess of many facets, daughter of the Dagda, wife of the treacherous Fomorian King Bress, and face of the Order of the Eternal Flame. She's a poet and a sage, caring and wise. Incidentally, she's also an Irish saint. Breach. Is it just Breach?
Old Irish, Breege. Modern Irish, Bridget.
Oh, okay, so I was right with the modern Irish. Paying Bridget your respects. That's gonna be her. I need her voice. The voice startles me into whirling around and scrambling upright. The sorry state of me seems to provoke a gentle laugh from the shadows. Easy, Druid. It's just me. I will not get her accent until I hear her voice. I breathe a hefty sigh of relief as Maeve steps out from behind the Galon and into the circle. Galon? Arms up high in mock surrender. There's an easy smile gracing her face. Sorry. Didn't mean to frighten you. I was just making sure no one else could spot me while I waited here. Robin dropped me off a while ago. To be honest, I was beginning to worry. I wasn't frightened. I'm brave. I keep my promises. I wanted the heart. But that might also have been good. That might have been good. It takes a moment for my heart to slow after that brief scare, but on hearing the shift in Maeve's tone, I stand up a little straighter. I keep my promises. I wasn't gonna back out on the investigation. Thank you for saying so. Getting to the bottom of this means a lot to us. To the king, especially. There's not a whole lot of people he trusts, let alone with something like this. I think we can trust you, though. We haven't known each other long, but I sense there's honor in you. I don't know what, fucking accent I was putting in there, and that's incorrect. Completely incorrect. American it is now. I didn't mean what I said like that, mind you. I was worried you might have been caught. Oh. Speaking of... A serious expression then falls over Maeve's face, signaling it's time to get back to business. You made sure you weren't followed? I don't think I was. This place is pretty down and out of the way. I did leave a few markers for myself so I wouldn't get turned around, but nothing obvious. Rock piles, a stick in the ground, things like that. She nods. That's fine. Later we'll need to discuss contingency plans if you're ever compromised. This is serious work, dangerous work, but we're not going to leave you in a lurch. In fact, Robin and I have been setting up various safe houses for you to run to if you're ever in danger. There'll be plenty of supplies on site so you don't think about packing anything, just go. I brought a map in case you need it. Here's hoping it never comes to that, though. For now, let's talk about what you've been able to find out, yeah? I nod back at Maeve, and my thoughts drift for a moment. If I'm being honest, it's been a right chaotic couple of weeks. It never quite struck me how hard this investigation business would end up being when I first agreed to help the Ancili. Between the task at hand and my clumsy attempts to keep up with the Daoine facade, I don't know how useful anything I've learned actually is. It hasn't been all bad luck, though. For one, when I got back to Daoine's cottage and started neatening up the place, I discovered that my mysterious twin left behind a number of handmade guides, reference books, and journals about their day-to-day activities. Question. Speculation. Is Daoine actually a druid? Or are they another human that got stuck here and it's like, you know, they just always catch... It's always been a human. Just saying. I didn't understand half the contents when I paged through the volumes I did pick up, and there's still miles more for me to comb. But their journals have given me an idea of what Daoine's life was like here, and knowing that context has saved my hide more than a few times. I only wish I had the ability to perform some of their duties as well. I don't much like lying to folks about why I can't prepare their medicine or help them with an ailment. That alone makes me feel a little useless. And I certainly don't want to end up being useless to Maeve, too. Reeps, is everything alright? I clear my throat, bringing myself back to the moment. Yeah, sorry, where should I start? Wherever makes sense. We don't know how much about what the Queen expects of you or how close to her you can usually get. You think the Seelie Queen's involved? Well, we don't want to rule anything out, of course. But she or her second are the most likely culprits at the moment. It's what makes the most amount of sense, but the king wants to be sure before we respond. Her second? Master Secrets? You mean my other husband? I remember the voice. I just remember the voice. The Master of Secrets. From our understanding, the two are very close. We've heard rumors that the man all but installed Queen Maithe. I believe it's Maithe.
Aoife.
Completely wrong. Installed Queen Aoife to the throne himself. I suppose that makes sense, but if Keegan orchestrated the killing, wouldn't it have been on the Queen's order still? Probably yes, but the Master of Secrets is no one's lackey. There's a distinct possibility that he acted on his own accord with his own motives in mind. If that's the case, it may change how we respond. How do you know? Sorry? I mean, how do you know Keegan would act on his own here? I'm not saying you're wrong one way or another exactly, but if he's close to the Queen, it stands she would have at least known what he was doing, yeah? Making her just as responsible? I would tend to agree, but the king wants to examine both angles. Maeve's words fall short. She shakes her head, seemingly deciding not to go on with whatever she had intended to say. What is it? The king's reasons are his business, not ours. Leave it be. Shave? Can I... Did I not shave? Oh. Yes. I think it's just safe to say let it go, because I'm trying to romance her. I don't want to piss her off. I'm tempted to ask Maeve anyway. Finding out if the Queen gave the order is one thing and still quite dangerous, but poking into the Master of Secrets affairs feels like sticking my hand into a bee's nest. That is, I don't much want to do it unless I really, really have to, and knowing the king's reasoning would help in that respect. But Maeve doesn't want to tell me for whatever reason. I don't like it, but since I trust Maeve, I have to believe her own trust in the king and his judgment is deserved. His reputation might be bad on the Seelie side and mixed even among the unseelie, but Maeve knows the king better than both. Besides, he is the one ultimately helping me get back home. I just hope I live long enough. Okay, I'll do my best. I know. Many thanks. Mila Boikas.
Mila Buikas.
Because I could read it, so. Still, don't take unnecessary risks. What you learn won't be much use if something bad happens to you before you can tell us. Plus, despite appearances, the king's concerned about your safety in all this as well, you know. The king is also my other husband. I have 3 of them at this point, so it's fine. Really? I'm not even sure he likes me. Well, respect, yes. Like, he will learn to love me. Ouch. She chuckles. He takes a while to warm up to most people these days. Don't take it personally. I mean, he's still sometimes on the fence with Robin, and they've known each other for 3 decades now. I guess so, but Robin's... Robin. True. Which means you should have no problem. Anyway, let's move on. What have you been able to find out? I run my fingers through my hair. Right, well, I've got good news and bad news then. Start with the bad. I haven't seen the Queen or the Master of Secrets since coming back. They're not at court at the moment. Which, to be honest, has been pretty great news for me. I wasn't looking forward to running into them again. I'm still not, really. Especially now. Do you know why they're gone? For Master Keegan, I haven't the foggiest. The Queen seems to be otherwise engaged in some sort of showcase? Right now she's traveling to Phineas, I think. Left while I was still with you lot. Maeve clicks her tongue. What's the good news then? The good news is I have no shortage of other suspects. I meant it as a joke, but Maeve doesn't look amused. What do you mean? Well, seems just about everyone I talked to had reason to want him dead, I suppose. She sighs. That isn't surprising. He was the traitor king, after all. Still, most would not have the means or the ability to carry out an assassination, let alone the assassination of King Lugard. He wouldn't go down without a fight, and on that front he was formidable, even in the end. It would have taken a skilled warrior to cut him down. Think back to the conversations you had. Was there anyone who stood out on that front? We can't discount the involvement of mercenaries, of course, but that would require a very deep pocket. Easy enough for the Queen or the Master of Secrets. Less so for the general public and potentially too risky for most nobles to entertain. Especially now when they're not likely to gain much from it, short of another war to eat up subjects and resources. I consider Maeve's words for a moment, reflecting back on the past 2 weeks. Right. Then I think there's at least 3? Well, 5 technically, but 3 of them are brothers. Maeve straightens her back. I think I know where you're going with this, but continue. All right. This happened a few days after my return to the Seelie court. I'd only just found the time to start my search since my cottage was a right mess after all the months I've been away. But I figured the palace was the best place to jump off from there, so there I was, roaming the halls. When I ran into Sethor, Kethor, and Tethor? Okay, which one are we?
Sethor, Kethor, Tethor.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think I said it right earlier. They look Why are you people the way that you are? And by ran into, I do mean that literally. They came rip-roaring around a corner too fast for me to dodge. Ugh. Watch where you're going, you savage. Ah, it's the druid again. Of course it is. You can smell the stench of Milesian from miles off. Milesian. Oh, by the way, their voices are just going to, like, interchange. It's just going to be hoity-toity for all of them, though. Just generally. You there, yes you. Don't scurry away. Look at what you've done. You made our poor little brother drop everything he was holding. I'm assuming that's Tethor. The one on the right. It's fine. Don't bother, Teth. They're not worth your breath. Oh, Apologies, Moat Lords. Do the three of you need help picking all that up? Why are we such a dork? It was basically just some stray paper, so I didn't much care about lending a hand if it'd get them off my arse. Still, almost as soon as the words were out, their heads started spinning between each other like I'd just done something strange. Well, at least you've developed some manners during your little absence. So, Daoine was a bitch. I liked them. It's about time you recognized your betters. Yes. In fact, you'll not only pick everything up, but you'll carry it all too. Tether shrugs. Alright then. I didn't really want trouble, so I went along with it. They're just heading back to their quarters anyhow, so it didn't take much time. As the chattier two plowed on ahead. Plowed on ahead. I don't know if that's supposed to be double or not. I think I could make either work. I ended up hanging back with the younger brother and speaking with him for a bit. So, big plans then? Tether nods. Well, insofar as he talked at all. Mostly, I just wanted to know what the brothers were up to, since I was holding a bunch of ledgers and lists of expenses. I wasn't sure if I'd get much out of Tether at first, but I think once he realized he had someone's ear and wasn't going to get talked over, he opened up a little more. We are preparing festivities to commemorate the traitor king's demise. Oh, I see. You disapprove. It's just a bit grim, not really. Safe. It's just a bit grim. It's just a bit grim. I don't know much about Lugard, but then know this. His castle was our home. What? That's not gonna happen. Are you slow? Woo.
On will to mal.
On will to mal. I'm going to use that. That's going to be the one that I memorize. What's up, babe? Baby Chad, feral child. This is not a spoopy game. It's absolutely not a spoopy game. You're good. You're safe here. I don't do spoopies. He stole it from us. Our mother was butchered in the sacking. Our father, the High Lord, was beheaded and hanged off the cliffside by the ankles, left to be devoured by crows. If not for the treaty, my brothers and I would have been strung up alongside him. Sorry, I had no idea. Fine. But speak no more of your insipid sympathies to me. Had I not been too green for the battle of Glion Rua, I'd have slain the wretch myself.
Glan Rua.
I did get Rua right. Okay. Doesn't get much more overt than that. But this doesn't mean Lord Tether or his brothers were responsible.
The treaty allowed them to flee to the Sealy side after the truce. But apart from retaining their titles, I can't imagine these lords have much power or influence or money.
At least not enough to murder King Lugard and get away with it. Probably right, I'm not so sure. Just trying to think of where they got the money from. I'm gonna go with she's probably right. You're probably right. I just thought it was worth mentioning, if only because it meant there could be other stranded lords at court who'd want to get their revenge. Maybe a bunch of them teamed up. Perhaps, but it would be difficult to hide a wider conspiracy from the Queen or her spy master. Unless they knew, but didn't care? I suppose that's true. It'd give the Queen plausible deniability, at least. Well, we'll keep the theory in mind. But you mentioned 2 other suspects. Right. So to be honest, I feel a bit bad about even bringing this one up. Why is that? Well, it's because they're always pretty nice to me, but a lead's a lead, so... Oh, I knew it. I knew they were going to be one of them. There's this guard I'm on friendly terms with. Recently, they came by my place and invited me out to the city to pick up some things. Supplies and stuff, since they're accurately assumed my shelves were pretty sparse. I agreed because I've got no reason not to accept a helping hand, but I decided to ask him some questions about Lugard and his death and the war and all that while we were out. Nothing overt, of course. I just figured since the festivities had started, it'd be as good a time as any to bring the topic up. Plus, they're one of the few open ears I've got handy. Mind you, I didn't go into my questions thinking they would be involved. I just thought they'd have more insight into how normal folk felt about all this. You know, the people outside the upper crust. But then they told me some stuff that made me second guess all that. Hold on a moment. Is this guard unfree? Or was before the war? Sorry? I'm not sure what you mean. I'm asking if you know whether their family is unfree. Servants or laborers bound to the Tuath? Tua. It has to be Tua. Tua!
Tua. And in the plural, Tuha.
I know the Seelie offered a bunch of unfree folk a chance to elevate themselves if they took up arms in the war and made it out alive after. Oh, then yes.
I see.
Look, while I don't want to be dismissive of this outright, do keep in mind. I know, means. But Maeve, they told me they've snuck across the border before. Just hear me out, okay? Okay. Alright, good. So, a little water break. So, this must be what you learn in book 2 if you want to romance them, the soldier. Okay, so you kind of just choose what side, basically. As we were talking, they told me they became a soldier for the Seelie when the war was at its worst. When the fighting felt like it would never end. And both sides were willing to do whatever it took to make sure that it did. No matter the cost. For example, in the bloody last battle for Tir na Nog, they said the Unseelie fought like they were frenzied by the end. Cutting down the Seelie's armies like a scythe through grass. The only thing the Seelie had going for themselves was numbers. For each Unseelie, there were about 5 Seelie soldiers holding them back. But the Seelie side was green, unseasoned. All the few final volunteers and terrified conscripts. It wasn't a fair fight man to man. Their words, not mine. But despite the odds of getting killed, they snuck into where the battle was thickest, sometimes crawling under people's legs to get to where they needed to go. To Lugard. I nod. They told me they got close, but not close enough. Someone else spotted him, kicked him down, and left him for dead when they lost consciousness. They don't know what happened after that. Got dragged off the field, I guess. Anyway, it struck me as sort of odd that they'd feel so, I don't know, compelled to take Lugard on it themselves. I mean, the odds weren't exactly on their side. There's plenty of reasons a foot soldier would try to kill Lugard. They'd be valorized for one thing, even if they died in the process. Sure, but I don't think that this was about glory. Then what was it about? Duty, love, conviction. I think it's duty or conviction. They are very like, I think it's duty. Oh, duty. To the Seelie? No, well, yes, but it's more than that. See, this guard wasn't always a guard. Before the war, or early into it, they served at the side of the king's heir. The princess who died, or, disappeared, after her stronghold was attacked by the Unseelie. They said they tried to help her escape, but the two got separated at some point. I think they still feel responsible for what happened to her in some way. That's why they admitted to crossing over into Unseelie territory. They're still looking for her now, hoping she's still alive against all odds. But during that battle, I don't think any of their hopes mattered. They thought it was the end, so they felt duty-bound to kill the man responsible for whatever happened to the princess. So, who knows, maybe on one of their ventures, if it was the right time and place. You haven't mentioned a name, Druid. Why is that? There's a curt edge to Maeve's voice as she interrupts me, and a stiff set to her jaw. It puts me on my guard for a moment, so I hesitate before answering. Does Maeve think I'm withholding information? I didn't intend that, but with her looking at me that way, now I'm wondering if I should be. Shay's not exactly high on my list of murder suspects, but crossing the border was still its own offense, which is why I thought I should bring it up. Anyone who's mad enough to chance getting executed might be willing to risk it all to take out the traitor king. I mean, Shay's already tried it before, right? But I guess I didn't really stop to consider what telling Maeve, the Unseelie King's second, would mean for Shay if they weren't the murderer. Maeve stepped up for me when I crossed the border on accident, but I really can't assume she'll do the same for Shay, can I? They're on different sides of this conflict after all. I might have been Seelie in her eyes, but I assumed Daoine didn't fight in the war. Likewise, I had something to offer the Unseelie if they let me live. Shay doesn't. I don't know Shay well, but they seem like a good enough person. As good a person as Maeve is, in any case. Do they really deserve to be condemned? Still, it's not like Maeve is unreasonable. Maybe I should just be honest. I don't exactly want to get on Maeve's bad side either. Maeve suddenly clears her throat, snapping me to attention. That's fantastic. Well? I just kind of want to, I don't know why this is actually kind of calming. The heartbeat's actually kind of calming. I'm gonna be honest. I'm in this route to romance Maeve. I'm gonna be honest. I don't feel like that's heart. I feel like the Unseelie, or like I'm getting relationship with the Unseelie, kind of like karma. Sorry, that wasn't my intent. It's Shay Fairglass. Fairglass? Courteous.
Shay Fairglass.
Fairglass. Green grass. I mean... Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. It's Shay Fairglass. Fairglass. I mean, I figured you wouldn't know the name anyway, so... And just to be clear, I wouldn't consider him a prime suspect, so to speak. So while I get that crossing the border's bad and all, I... Thank you for bringing this to my attention, despite the conflict of interest. Crossing the border is a serious offense. Your friend's a fool for admitting to it. I'll get Robin to investigate the matter. I think they've mentioned running into a Shay a time or two, so don't worry about it anymore. Excuse me. Are you going to... So long as they're on Seelie territory, the king and I can do nothing without involving the Seelie queen. Should we need to extradite them, which would be our right to request. The alternative would be the treaty's dissolution. But right now, it would make no sense for us to do so. The Seelie might begin to think they have a mole, so it puts you at risk. And frankly, we have more important matters to deal with at the moment. I don't know why I got so stuffy all of a sudden, excuse me. But Maeve takes a deep breath. If we catch them on our side, we'll do what we must. If you'd Hello. Welcome, Raiders. How are you? I don't ever really get raided on Frisky Flirty Fridays. Hello! Empties Goblins are here to raid you. I got nothing. I got nothing for y'all. Do you want my trash? Are you trash goblins? I'll give you the trash. Empty, hello! How was your stream, sweetie? What were you playing tonight? You're playing so many big games lately. Hello, Raiders, welcome. My name is Reaper Babe. I stream a lot of different games. Tonight is Frisky Flirty Friday, where I play Otome games. Tonight was Skyrim. Did you turn off your I was lurking at one time. Did you turn off your the HUD this time too? Because apparently that's something you do, is that you turn off the HUD for Skyrim, which makes it infinitely harder, and yet you were doing phenomenal when I was watching you the other day. I'll take a trash, please. Trash for the trash pandas. Here you go. Honestly, a napkin. There you go. That's trash. Oh my god. No HUD, survival mode, expert level. What are you people doing expert levels difficulties? What? No. I'm here doing my casual runs. Well, with a raid, this is the perfect time to actually use my raid intro vid. So, Raiders, welcome again. I'm gonna take just a minute, let you guys watch this that I made. I'm very proud of it. So you get a little bit, get to know a little bit more about me, and we'll be right back into the show. Game? Show? I'm gonna shut up and let you guys watch the video. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries, and welcome to Reaper Babe Gaming. Ah! Because this is an Otome. I'm allowed to thirst. I have water. So, Miss Babe, how does it feel to have two old men fighting over you? Honestly, Ray, it feels great.
Neighbors came by last night to complain about the noise. I put their bodies in the building incinerator.
You did what? I want to fuck around and find out on my own. If I'm gonna make a mistake, it's gonna be my mistake, and I made the decision to make that mistake. That's on me.
You're done.
Nice work.
Get off.
Accept your fate. Accept your fate.
Oh, I headshotted that!
Hey,
Let's go!
that's all that was
Good job. I'm sorry we
Woo!
missed it.
You got two options before you right now. Option number one. You let go of your nightlife.
Are cute. So much so that I could eat you right up.
I'm done. No, wait.
Okay.
Yes! That's it! No, I wasn't okay with this. Wait a minute. I slapped my hand immediately over my mouth. Christ, why did I say that? Blushies! Blushies! I'm winning. I am so winning. I am so buffed in this patch, y'all.
It's windy up here.
There. It's okay. I know there are other things you're good at.
This is without a doubt my favorite game. Mass Effect is my favorite game. Hello, ladies. Yeah, welcome back. I took that opportunity to hydrate up the wazoo. Yeah, idiot, what the fuck? Yeah. But yeah, so welcome Raiders. So, Empty, girl, you finished the stream. Go take a break, relax, eat dinner or have a snack or whatever you gotta do. Raiders as well, if you guys just need to relax and chill, absolutely do that. Tonight is definitely a night where I kind of just read stories and you guys have me on in the background as the weird voice. I'm not very good at pitching myself, I don't think, actually. To be fair, it's also 11:30, so my brain is gone. I'm barely reading at, like, a 2nd grade level. That last fight, oh my god. The last fight of Mass Effect. I want to play Mass Effect. Mass Effect would be the only game that I would try, like, a harder difficulty. Dulcet tones of Reaper ASMR. Okay, I will say there's sometimes I start freaking out. You've been in this chat, Arctic. You know there's times where I'm just like, okay, so the energy went up to 20. I know. I think I'm only going to get through like 1 chapter of this tonight, but 1 chapter is better than nothing at all. But please, please, please go rest, sweetie. Spicy moments. But this is the same game that I got blushies on in one of the clips. So this is The Good People. Daoine Maithe, I believe is the pronunciation in Irish. It's Irish based. There is a lot of Irish culture and language, so I fuck up the pronunciation all the time. But the game is really nice because someone has voiced all of those things and you can click it and I'll show you guys when it comes up. So yeah. No, thank you for the raid, Empty. Oh, we lurking, of course, definitely need to go get food. Absolutely, absolutely. No. Go do what you gotta do, sweetie. Raiders, all of you as well. Thank you again for coming by. Arctic, welcome. Okay, let's get back into this. This is my wife. This is the one I'm romancing this run. At the moment, there's only 2 romance routes available. Shay and Maeve. This is Maeve. I'm romancing her this run. I have 2 others, but this is the only one that's available that I want to romance. With the T, there's a T quest? Sorry. Focused. If we catch them on our side, we'll do what we must. If you'd prefer that didn't happen, I'd heavily suggest giving them a good bit of discouragement from setting foot in Murius or Gorius again. Oh, what'd you do that for? No, come back here. Give me the music. There we go. Got it. Well, I don't quite like how that all played out, but Maeve seems satisfied with my cooperation. I'll just have to discreetly warn Shay to keep clear of the Unseelie, at least for a little while. I breathe a weary sigh, feeling a bit frazzled after the unexpectedly tense conversation. But unfortunately, we're not done here yet. Since Maeve hasn't spoken up again, I decide to just keep going. Okay, so this final suspect's a bit of a long story, but it's the last thing I have to report for now. I think the Queen's due back in a week or so, so maybe I'll have more for you then. Maeve nods, but seems distracted. Lost in thought. Okay, no matter, I suppose. Alright, this happened fairly recently. Back at the palace again. I'm due to meet with Maeve in 3 days' time, wherein I'm supposed to report my findings on the murder of King Lugod. If I'm being honest with myself, though, I don't have much to say. For the past 2 weeks, I've chased after anyone at court willing to speak with me on the matter, but those talks have been few and far between, nor were they terribly helpful. The servants shared only as many words with me as they needed to, and I honestly can't say I blame them for that. My lips would be just as tight if our spots were reversed. Be that as it may, I got a rough summary of their general sentiments towards the man, and ironically the differences between their and Unseelie people's perspective were like night and day. Many of the common folk lost kin during the War of the Courts, whether to the fighting or as a result of the borders closing down. Of all the expected outcomes, a kingdom torn in two wasn't one of them, and it had dire consequences. For one, the Treaty of Mutual Surrender went into effect the moment it was signed by the rival kings. This meant that anyone inside the borders of Marius and Gorius, with the exception of noble names and returning soldiers, were now subjects of the Unseelie. As such, if you had family caught on the wrong side, chances were high that you'd never see them again. And you'd had no chance to prepare for this eventuality. Of course, some folk panicked and tried to flee into Falius and Phineas anyway, but most of these defectors were cut down by border enforcers. Meanwhile, those who did successfully escape had to live in hiding, lest their discovery lead to an execution. It was what the treaty demanded of escapees, but they were not the only ones affected. In fact, the folks who fled from the now Unseelie provinces even prior to the treaty's enactment often faced the same fate, no matter the state of their hearts or sworn allegiances. Those in power were simply too paranoid about secret rebels and traitors living in their midst, so anyone tainted by proximity to the Unseelie were viewed with suspicion by default. And where there was suspicion, there were false accusations, convictions, lives pointlessly lost. Rebel hunting hysteria has thankfully died down in the last 20 years, but many people, especially those who live next to Marius and Gorius, carry scars from both the war and what happened after it. However, despite the Seelie state's own hand in these matters, the Loyalists seem to place their blame squarely on Lugard. None of it would have happened if not for his rebellion, after all. Still, I don't get the impression that most or any of these folks were filled with enough righteous fury to kill Lugard. They're thankful for his passing and spit his name into the dirt, but they would have had too much to lose to take that kind of risk themselves. As for the nobles and well-to-dos, well, that's another matter. Everyone hates Lugard, but the rich folks speak of him like he's something between a feral hound and the devil himself. I couldn't point a finger at any of them, and odds are high they take credit for his murder even if they hadn't been involved. That said, while the common folks are fairly uniform in their thoughts on the Unseelie king, the nobles' hatred tends to be a bit more varied, usually by point of impact. In the first faction, there are the nobles that left Marius and Gorius to avoid certain death, like Tether and his brothers. Some fled during the war, usually after having their lands seized by the Unseelie, but most were escorted out after the treaty was put into law. In either case, being forced to escape meant leaving behind a legacy so as to not die with it. Lands that had belonged to their families for generations, hundreds, if not thousands of years, were now being occupied by violent criminals of another name. Likewise, for the first time in their lives, many of these folks found themselves with nothing to their names but a title. The petty lords were now practically peasants themselves in lieu of any land, wealth, or tenants, and even the likes of Sethor, Kethor, and Tethor, the sons of the deceased High Lord of Murius, had to bow and scrape to regain the prestige they felt they were owed. The resentment was palpable and their loss is significant, but their pockets were just about empty. Still, where there's a will, there's a way. Certainly Tethor made it plain that he'd have killed Lugard if he'd had the chance. Perhaps that was an admission. Even so, there's yet another side at court to keep in mind in all this. The nobles that rule over Falius and Phineas. They have an entirely different sort of ire towards Lugard, one born more out of disgust and indignation, but it's visceral all the same. The idea that a base-born dog who dared to call himself a god could wreak such havoc and uproot so many noble lineages was outrageous as it was horrifying to these folks. It was unheard of and an implicit threat to their own once assured authority. With that said, most of them couldn't quite decide whether to be terrified of Lugard for what he had accomplished, or haughtily dismissive of him in light of his failure to finish the job. Their arrogance encouraged the latter, but their fear never quite went away. It stood to reason, then, that any of these people might want to kill the man before he provoked another rebellion. Even if he never took up the mantle again, who's to say someone else wouldn't get inspired? Better to make an example of him, then. I sigh, leaning back against an ivy ornamented pillar in one of the many palace halls. Theories, theories, theories. All I have are broad-stroked theories about the plausible profile of Lugod's murderer, and that's assuming he was killed by a Seelie at all. I have a few names, no real evidence, and no more leads. That's it. What's the contingency if I don't find anything of use for the Unseelie anyway? Will the king still send me home? I have no idea, and it's making me nervous. I don't know how much longer I can keep up appearances before my spying or true identity is discovered. Either reveal is dangerous for me. The Seelie would execute me for treason, and the Unseelie would probably refuse to aid me for defrauding them. I'm in way over my head. What other choice do I have? I need to get home. That's not me. I didn't cry. I'm scared, but I'm not sniffling. Out of nowhere, I hear something that sounds akin to a soft weeping. Is it coming from the throne room? Curiosity piqued, I wander over. Oh, she pretty! Sweetie, I need you in color. As I glance inside, I spot an older, elegantly dressed lady standing vigil before the Seelie throne. Her back is turned to me from where I enter, but there's no one else in the room from what I can see. The weeping must be coming from her. I'm not sure what to do about this, if anything at all. I've never seen this woman, never met her. What are the chances she'd want me to intrude? Not high, I'd wager. I begin to turn around, but as I do, the soles of my shoes make a loud squeak on the sleek, ivory-colored floors. Wincing, I impulsively look back towards the woman, who likewise meets my gaze, her expression a mix of startled surprise and profound irritation. Before I can say anything or even think to apologize, the woman has already turned on her heels and stormed out of the throne room altogether. I almost joined her in that swift departure, albeit more so out of embarrassment, but a sudden clattering sound gives me pause. Did she drop something? I look back at the base of the throne and spot an object glimmering in the sunlight. Instinctively, I jog over and crouch down, picking up a small silver ring off the ground. Its surface is engraved with a symbol of a bird flying through an incomplete circle. And little red and blue gemstones are set all the way around the band. She definitely doesn't want to lose this. Further, I don't want to be blamed for a theft if someone else picks it up before she realizes it's gone. With haste, I run after the lady into the gardens and work myself into a sweat trying to find her among the tall rows of shrubbery. Every once in a while, I see the top of her head or the fringe of her dress, but each time I get close, she seems to disappear again. I'd almost admire her sprightly step if it wasn't so bloody inconvenient. It's not like I can just shout after her. I don't know her name or title, and I can't imagine she'd take too kindly to an "Oi, you!" from the likes of me. Or at all. Fortunately, I do eventually locate the woman despite all her attempts to dodge me. She scowls as soon as she sees I've caught her and all but spits out her next words. Oh, for Danu's sake! Do you have nothing else to do? I hoist my arms and the ring up in genuine surrender, not wanting to be trapped in this enduringly awkward moment any longer than needed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I intend to leave you be, but you dropped this back there, so I... Her face falls as she eyes the ring and immediately snatches it from my fingers, quick as anything, and without even bothering to ask me for it first. The action is aggressive enough that I almost say something terse, but any retort I had fades from my throat as I notice her iron grip on the ring, and how protectively she holds it to her chest before she wedges it back onto her finger. I see. Well, go rave Maithe agat. That's wrong. Thank you. Okay. Go Rama agut?
Guramahagut.
Guramahagut. I should learn that one because it's just thank you. That thank sounds like it's being wrenched from her mouth, but I don't get the sense that she doesn't mean it. If anything, her reluctant tone feels like an indication of sincerity. No matter how intrigued I am, I don't attempt to pry. Instead, I simply nod my head in brief acknowledgement and turn to walk away. Shh! Does your queen tolerate such insolence? Or is this manner of departure simply how she's instructed you to behave around me? Are you Unseelie? I resist the urge to sigh. Tabranorm? I'm sorry.
Tabronorum.
Tabranorm. I intended no slight. Just figured you'd rather be rid of my intrusion is all. Astute. But it is customary to bow when excusing oneself from royalty. My eyebrows raise slightly. Royalty? How can that be? I don't expect she's any relative of Aoife's. As far as I know, Aoife Aoife's the first in her line. Aoife, I am right, haha. Have we met? The woman's lips tighten, but I figure she's already got a bee in her bonnet, so cutting to the chase isn't going to impact this conversation any worse. No. Her Majesty never ordained to introduce us. Am I to understand the Queen has also neglected to tell you the court druid who I am? I don't reply, as I can't really say one way or the other. Of course, I suppose this is my burden for spending so much time away from this wretched place. Moment by moment, I'm slowly ceasing to exist. No doubt our beloved sovereign wishes it were so. Well, she can carry on as she likes, but I have no intention of going anywhere. The woman solidifies her posture into a rigid edge, then affixes me with a smirk. I am Orlaith, Dowager Queen of the late King Henri, and while I may not sit the throne, I am entitled to all the addresses and honors of a royal still. How do we say your name?
Orla.
Orla. Okay, Orla, that's Henri. Hi. That's cool. Oh. Interesting. Apologies, Your Highness. It won't happen again. See that it does not. Without another word, I bow, turn, and... Wait. You are not dismissed. I actually sigh then. Is there something you need, Your Highness? From over my shoulder, I see Orla fidget with the ring. It's Orla, right? Orla, yep. Yes, well, perhaps, I wonder, is there a way to prove the veracity of a birth claim by some magic? I arch an eyebrow. Orla must sense I'm about to ask the obvious question, though, because she beats me to the punch. The reason for my inquiry is none of your business, of course. But if you must know, a cousin of mine is being pestered by some peasant woman claiming to be the bearer of his bastard. If he was less the tender-hearted fool that he is, he would have ignored her, but instead he has chosen to fund the child's rearing, and may yet give more. I simply want to prevent such sentimental folly from continuing. Or are these matters beneath Queen Aoife's pet Militian? Milesian. I can't help but squint. Not just at the insults, but at the question. Would she really bother to ask me about something like that? It's a little suspicious, if nothing else. Fuck it, I want to confront her. I feel all my frustrations with the case, my life, the Dowager Queen, and every sneering noble twat just like her suddenly boil over. I don't know how much power she really has, but there's only so many insults and dagger-eyed looks I can take. If she wanted an honest answer, which I can't even properly provide, then she ought to have asked me nicely. And as it stands, there are other matters I am more curious about. This cousin of yours, where is he? What? Phineas, of course. It is where my house. There are no druids in Phineas, you could have asked. Awfully presumptuous of you to believe I did not. Then you have your answer already. Mine isn't going to differ. You little. Unless your cousin isn't really what all this is about. Watch yourself, Druid. I may not be the queen, but do not think for a moment I have lost all my power, or my friends at court. Your position here is not as secure as you may think. Oh! Is that why you decided to turn up now? Well, the queen is out and about, and the city's celebrating the traitor king's death? How dare you? Court druid or not, should have you flogged for casting such accusations. I didn't accuse you of anything. You said so yourself that you haven't been back here in a while, so why now? Just to stand in an empty throne room and envision yourself up on the seat? And what's with the ring? You're gripping it like... Enough! My reasons are my own. And this was my signet ring, you imbecile. Engraved with... Bodabdergs?
Bodjarog.
Bogdarrig. Royal coat of arms. Just one of these gems is more valuable than the totality of your worthless little life. Good job keeping it safe then, just dropping it like that. You're just as careless with the non-worthless people in your life. Okay, I said I wanted to confront her. Not set fire, like, damn! Get out of my sight. Didn't need to tell me twice. I make a point of accentuating my bow, flourishing my arms out on either side. Gladly, your highness. I don't bring up this interaction just because it was generally odd, though. I bring it up because not a day later I ran into her again. It was on the day I planned to head out here to the Druid's Crossing. I was just making my way out of Tamare when I spotted Orla from the corner of my eye. She just hoisted a hood over her head and dipped out in the main thoroughfare into some skeevy-looking back alleys. I thought it was odd, so I followed her. Further into the underbelly of the city, Orla eventually met up with some rough sort of fellow. 'Cause I kept my distance, I didn't hear all of what they said, but... This is the last of it, you understand. You will get no more from me unless you do as I command. This has gone on long enough. Aye, keep your peace now. You must know we're doing everything we can, but these things are complicated. It seems simple enough for you. Shh, not so loud, ma'am. I assure you there's nothing simple about avoiding the patrols. Unless you look like one of them or have enough... Faini? Tirnanog. Or currency.
Faunia.
Faunia.
And then the plural. Faunyi.
Or have enough Faunia to keep them quiet. But that's beside the point. Have we not sent you more than enough proof? Told you things no one else could know? Have some faith, ma'am. When the time is right, all that you desire will come to pass. What do you want, Orla? My decision is final. This is the last of it until my terms are met. Find some way, and I'll make it well worth your while. Orla reaches under her cloak and pulls out a fat, jangling purse, which the man swiftly takes. Aye, very well. I'll pass that along. But if you ask me... I do not. Scurry back to your gang. Gang? Psh, perish the thought. The Nua Fianna are humble servants of the one true queen of Tirnanog, and now that Lugard lies dead, well, it will make our next moves much, much easier. What? Are you... Did you hear that right? Fairly sure. Those are the bandits you ran with, right? Yes, it is. Nua Fianna's working with... What? Maeve's words fall short as a loud snap and rustling sound reverberates from the forest. We look at each other. Maeve quickly presses a finger to her lips and gestures for me to stand still. Then... Arrow! Double arrow! I jump back and gasp as an arrow flies through the air and passes us by, embedding itself into the ground a few feet away.
Bollocks! Get behind those Galan over there and keep your head down.
Yes, ma'am. Maeve's voice is hushed but firm, and I obey her without hesitance. But as I try to get away from danger, Maeve moves towards it. She crouches low and scans the section of the forest that the arrow just came from, but keeps herself shielded behind the central gallon, Bridget. Her hand grips her sword tightly, but from my vantage point, I can't see what she's seeing, if she's seeing anything at all. I hold my breath and my mind suddenly swirls in raw panic. How is this possible? I was so sure I wasn't. Butterfly. Oh, Christ. Maeve, I think I... But my half-baked warning comes too late.
Farir. My sincerest apologies. I told my men to keep their wits about them. But it seems your nerve-wracking reputation has reached far and wide, Tradur.
Maeve is so cute. Maeve is adorable. The king, super hot. Keegan's voice gets me every damn time. And they're so confident and cocky too. But there's no need for all that. Why don't we just come out and have ourselves a little talk instead? Besides, you're surrounded. It's... It's midnight. Oh my god, it's midnight. But I know. They do this. They do this every damn time. They give me Keegan, and then they stop the chapter. Pain. All I know is pain. All Otome's give me is pain and suffering. I think it would be smart to not continue, because I'm already having issues reading and I'm yawning. I'm gonna say no. But we have such a good starting point next week. What's this? Hello. Quality of life patch. Oh my god! I did love that. I loved the hovering for the terms. Ooh. Your save system, once enabled in settings, you'll be able to save your choices by clicking the gear. Oh, okay. Oh my god. Honestly, Esh, if I wasn't streaming, I would continue. But because I'm streaming and I'm reading, I just... It's taking everything in me. Like, how I don't... Nope. Anyway, if you guys want to say bye to YouTube while I do my little outro, that would be cool. I'm getting the feeling that, like, the reporting to Maeve and, like, talking to the people, the brothers, Shay, and, Orla. So Orla? The Dowager Queen is, like, a synopsis of what happens in book 2. And that's actually not bad. Because if, let's say they're putting the entirety of, like, book 2, or, like, the first, like, third of book 2 into that being like the synopsis, the summary, that's not bad. I think one thing with this story is that there is a lot of detail. I sometimes think high word counts are great, especially for otomes and dating sims and visual novels, because you're paying for the story. You're not necessarily paying for anything else. Other games, you're paying for like the fighting and like the details and those aspects of it. But when it comes to story games, romance, otomes, dating sims, you are paying for the story. So it's always nice to see a high word count. Now, just like with my fan fictions, honestly, just like with my novels that I read, high word count is great. But if you're putting a lot of it into the world and the plot, you're going to keep people and you're going to lose people. So, for me personally, I do enjoy the world. I think it's very creative. I love that we are touching on like Irish culture that we don't see a lot of. But for me, I play otomes for the romance. And so in doing this whole session, we didn't really get characterization and romance with Maeve. And I know people are gonna be like, well, you gotta set it up, Reaper. We thought you like the enemies to lovers, that slow burn. I do, but I want my enemies to lovers to be on every single page, and I want to see that slow burn, like I want to see it. So I feel like there was a lot of exposition and there's a lot of talking. It's very plot driven, which if you're playing an otome for the romance, it can seem very bogged down. I love the story, and I think it does feel bogged down to me at some points, but then they're doing a really good job with giving characters that I love. So I think I'm getting lucky, because if Keegan hadn't shown up, I don't know how I would have felt about it, kind of thing. Like, unless you had the king to kind of come in and save them. So it's important to note what kind of stories you like. If you're like, man, I'm into this for the plot, the characters are good. It's kind of like Mass Effect. Like, the plot of Mass Effect and the story of Mass Effect is great, and the characters add to it, but you don't play it necessarily to romance the characters, unless you're me. I did. But anyway, besides the point. I feel like otomes, you go into it expecting to romance. So when there's a lot of plot and a lot of backstory and things like that, it can muddle the romance aspect of it. Now, again, is that good? Is that bad? It's for every person to decide. It depends on who you are as a reader. This story intrigues me just enough to keep with it. And I love Maeve, and I love the king, and I love Keegan. So I will stick with it for those three characters in particular to get what I am hoping is going to be some fantastic moments with them. But if other people played this game and was like, man, I just couldn't get past the second chapter because there's just so much like lore and info, I could totally understand if they're the same person as me. I can also understand other people being like, yeah, I love the story and the characters are great. I don't even care about the romance at this point. That's totally fair as well. Everyone is going to play it differently. I think I'm more getting lucky. It feels bogged down and then my favorite character shows up. So I think I'm getting very, very lucky, is all I'm going to say. And I will stick with this for those three characters. But yeah, that's I think that's what I'm getting right now. I think flashbacks are always tricky like that, because if there are extended flashbacks, you can have a sense of being dragged down versus being able to see the story real time. But exactly, yes. And they had to do it because they don't say like, oh, you need to do book 1, 2, and 3. They say do book 1 because that sets the story. But I skipped book 2. I didn't do book of the Soldier. I went straight to Book of the Warrior because I wanted to romance Maeve. So I understand. And to be fair, that's really good because I don't necessarily like having to play roots for characters I don't want to romance. So I understand what they did and why they had to do it, and I have no complaints with that. I think the story in general has a lot of history, has a lot of, like, they put a lot into the story aspect of it, right? So if you're here for a quick romance or a very heavy romance, you are not going to get that early in the game. You are playing this long game. It's a good thing I like slow burns because I'm in this for the long haul. But that's just my thoughts on it. I still love it. I'm still going to continue it. I believe there's only like half of the book out. So Book of the Soldier and Book of the Warrior are both available, but only the first half of both of those books are available. And they're going to add on as time goes on. And I think that's a very popular thing to do right now with otomes, and I actually am here for it. I am absolutely here for it, especially if you're going to do these long, thousands of words stories. Like, absolutely. And at this point, you're giving me a novel, so I'm fine with it. But I've rambled enough. YouTube, if you have made it this far, thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying this story. I hope you're enjoying our talks about it afterwards, our characters, maybe my voice acting that has lost all hints of Irish accent, so apologies. But still appreciate you guys being here. And if you did make this far, can you please leave a like? That'd be cool. I'm trying to do more of this stuff, so thank you. And with that, I hope that you have a great day, night, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.